Well, that was one heck of a rush, wasn't it, Asher? Yes, indeed, it was one heck of a rush. Welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. We are back for WN 365 Live, and live we are indeed. So be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, as you can see right up there. We're at 26,200 subscribers, and it's a big week of pro wrestling. Of course, it is Thursday. That means we're just 48 hours away from the Royal Rumble. Less now than 48 hours away from the Royal Rumble, because of course it starts at 7 p.m. GMT, that being UK time here. So I'll be live on Saturday, 15 minutes before, about 15 minutes or 30 minutes, depending on how the day goes. I will be live for that with a watch along and a post show, and of course I'll be live tomorrow as well with a watch along and a post show too. This evening we've got so much to talk about though. We're going to be talking about AJ Styles, some big news when it comes to the Phenomenal One, and a possible sensational move to AEW. Now, we know that AJ Styles, of course, he's retiring this weekend. Is he? Well, we think we know that's the case. It looks like he's going to be retiring. He's facing Gunther at the Royal Rumble, and he's agreed to put his career on the line. We also know that AJ Styles, his WWE contract is up at the end of January, around February time, something like that. And it's led to a lot of speculation of, okay, he is retiring. Shinsuke Nakamura, of course, he had that match against AJ Styles at Saturday night's main event last Saturday. And then, subsequently, 24 hours later on Sunday morning, he puts out an Instagram story which says, which basically says that he spoke to AJ Styles last year in Australia, and he told him that he was going to be retiring next year. He said, I've already made my mind up. I'm retiring. It's at the Royal Rumble, which would make sense. AJ Styles made his WWE debut at the Royal Rumble in 2016. A decade later, he finishes up with WWE at the Royal Rumble in 2026. There's kind of poetry and symmetry in that one. And it led to a lot of people going, okay, right, so AJ Styles is retiring. He's decided that he's had enough of pro wrestling and he's done. But then Monday night on Raw, we saw that AJ Styles kind of referred to his WWE career being over, not so much his pro wrestling career. And everyone said, that's quite interesting that he mentioned his WWE career. And then today, we saw reports come out saying that AJ Styles had filed some trademarks. And trademarks are always the things, folks, to look out for. Just how Tommaso Ciampa announced he was leaving WWE and then filed trademarks for Psycho Killer and Psycho King. It's always the trademarks that maybe give a little bit of an indication about what could possibly come in the future. Whenever talents leave WWE or they leave AEW and they file trademarks for nicknames or ring names or things of that nature, that leads people to go, oh, they're looking to own their name, which means they want to use it in whatever company. Just how Royce Keys, I think, is the name for Powerhouse Hobbs. How do people know that? Trademark filings. They saw the trademark filings and they went, oh, Royce is the name of one of Hobbs' sons. That's going to be Powerhouse Hobbs' name in WWE. Just like that, they figured it out. So the fact that AJ Styles today has, well, I say today, but the fact that AJ Styles has renewed these trademarks, it has led people to speculate that maybe this could be because he is on his way to All Elite Wrestling. This is what is being reported, saying that Styles filed to renew his trademarks on the term The Phenomenal AJ Styles and his signature P1 logo on Wednesday, January 28th. That's yesterday. Now, the filing on his name has been active since 2001, while the filing on his logo has been active since 2012. Now, the full trademark description for both filings can be seen here. It says, this kind of threw people off a little bit, where it said, providing wrestling news and information via a global computer network. Now, this led people to speculate, oh, he's doing a podcast, basically. He's going to be doing a podcast. That's what it is. He's going to be maybe going to ad-free shows. He's going to be going to Conrad Thompson, or he's going to be doing some kind of YouTube channel maybe, and that's the YouTube channel name. Or he's going to be part of something that he's just going to be telling stories about his time in WWE, his time in TNA, maybe some WCW stories, some New Japan stories, some Bullet Club stories. That's what it's going to be about. He's not going to be going to AEW or anything like that. It's just a case of him doing a podcast or having a YouTube channel, which might be. That might absolutely that could be the case. It continues on, though, by saying entertainment services, namely wrestling exhibits and performances by a professional wrestler and entertainer. Entertainment in the nature of wrestling contests, entertainment services, namely televised appearances by a professional wrestler and sports entertainer. That's when you get into using the name on television, which again is interesting. It says entertainment services, namely personal appearances by a professional wrestler and sports entertainer. Entertainment services, namely live appearances by a professional wrestler and sports entertainer, which again could just be like a spoken word tour, something like that. Providing online interviews featuring professional wrestler and sports entertainer in the field of professional wrestling and sports entertainment for entertainment purposes. Of course, Styles' career, as it mentions there, will be on the line in a match against Gunther at the Royal Rumble on Saturday. So, I mean, honestly, this just covers all bases, doesn't it, really? It just covers all bases that he can basically use the name AJ Styles and the P1 logo, which is that logo behind him. It's on his gloves as well, that he can use that anywhere he pleases for anything that he wants to use it for. So that, again, could easily be a podcast, could be a YouTube channel, could be a pro wrestling tees store, could be a spoken word tour with Inside the Ropes, could also be to go to AEW and use it in All Elite Wrestling, could be to go back to New Japan Pro Wrestling and use it there. It's quite worth pointing out as well, the filing on the name has been active since 2001. So that means AJ Styles has been in ownership of his trademark, his name, his pro wrestling name, since 2001. So he's owned it for 25 years. So during this time in WWE, and this has been pointed out before, the same goes for the AJ Styles logo, and he's owned the logo since 2012. It's been mentioned before that because for a while he had to wear different kind of gloves and what have you. It was because it was about the merchandising agreement and the trademark agreement to be able to use the AJ Styles logo and to be able to use the AJ Styles name. Generally how it works with naming trademarks is if they've used it prior to WWE and they use it in WWE, they can use it anywhere. That's why Samoa Joe has been Samoa Joe in TNA, in WWE, and in AEW, because he was using it in Ring of Honor. He was using it for years. He used it before WWE. He owns it. He can use it anywhere he wants. Same with AJ Styles. AJ Styles can use it wherever he wants. He used it in TNA. He used it in WCW. He owns the trademark to that name, so he can use it anywhere he wants. Same goes to his trademark for the logo. So is this a smoking gun that he is on his way to AEW if indeed he does lose this weekend and retire from WWE? I would say no. Not in the same way that, say, like Tommaso Ciampa's was maybe a bit of a smoking gun. And the reason I say that is because he's always owned this. That's the key thing. This might just be something as simple as, look, I've owned it since 2001. Like it mentions here, I've owned the AJ Styles name, or the phenomenal AJ Styles name, since 2001. I'm just renewing it. I'm just making sure that, that I've got full ownership of it because I'm not going to go wrestle anywhere else, but I do want to do some things with my name, like maybe have a YouTube channel. We know he's an active gamer, like really go full-time into Twitch, into streaming perhaps, and he just wants to make sure that he can fully use anything he wants to use when it comes to that. And the same for his logo, because anything he uses, whether it be, whether it be a Twitch, whether it be merchandise on PWTs, whether it be, like I said, a tour of Inside the Ropes, he wants to be able to have the phenomenal AJ Styles coming to Manchester and have the P1 logo there. That's what he wants. So I don't know if it's necessarily a smoking gun that he's going to AEW. Oh, this means he's definitely going to AEW. Watch out, AJ Styles is going to AEW. I don't think it's that, but it definitely does pour some extra fuel onto that fire. That wasn't really. This is the interesting thing too. It didn't feel like. I don't know about you, but it didn't feel like, did it, that this whole, AJ could go to AEW, that didn't really feel like it was a thing. It really did feel like he was just going to finish up in WWE and that would be it. I mean, he did have opportunities to go to AEW before, namely that opportunity to go to AEW when they were getting set up for the first episode of Dynamite. People forget this. The plans for the first episode of Dynamite were so different than what we got. The first episode of AEW Dynamite in October of 2019, in the end, it emanates from Washington, D.C. Wasn't it Capital One Arena, I think it was? That was the first episode. The original plans for that first episode of AEW Dynamite would have had AEW running Madison Square Garden, which they had booked, but then reportedly WWE blocked it because they found out about it. They couldn't, stop it like they tried to stop the Ring of Honor New Japan show, which did end up running at MSG. But the first episode of Dynamite, they wanted to have an MSG, and what was going to close the show was going to be Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, the Elite, standing in the ring. They would be confronted and attacked by AJ Styles, Doc Gallows, and Carl Anderson. Their contracts were coming up in WWE over the summer of 2019, and there were talks about them possibly reuniting with the former Bullet Club people that were in AEW and doing stuff there. Ultimately, they decided to stay with WWE. They all signed 5-year deals. The story's been told a million times by Anderson and Gallows of doing a tour of Japan with WWE and Triple H being involved in these main event matches with AJ Styles and those guys. And he convinced them, stay, we want to look after your family. That's a risk. Don't do it. They all signed 5-year deals. Pandemic comes a few months later, and Gallows and Anderson got cut. AJ stayed. AJ really resented Paul Heyman for the longest time because of it. It was a whole thing. So he could have gone to AEW then, decided against it, re-signed, and was kind of like, this will probably be my last contract. He ended up extending it a little bit more, but this contract he's on right now, he says, is going to be the last one. But it's the future's very murky regarding all of this. I think it is, because when you use the phrases, my WWE career coming to an end and not your pro wrestling career, it's a bit, again, it feels a bit like it did with Edge. Felt like a bit like it did with Edge when we knew that he was possibly going to be leaving, and he had basically his retirement match on SmackDown against Sheamus. Now, that wasn't billed as a retirement match in the same way that this is billed as a retirement match, but at the same time, they weren't doing a career killer gimmick with Sheamus that they are doing with Gunther. And if they know that, Styles is leaving, and he said, look, I'm leaving, and I am going to go to AEW for a couple of months, but then I'm done. I'm kind of doing the Adam Copeland thing. Then maybe they'll go, right, we can just say that, you retired. And that hurts AEW because you have to retire from WWE to go to AEW. I don't know. But it is quite curious. I still lean towards no, though. I still lean towards no. I mean, I'll put a poll in the chat, actually. I'll put a poll in the chat. Will AJ Styles sign with AEW after WWE retirement? Then we go yes or no. I mean, in terms of, the retirement thing this weekend, I do think he loses. I don't think there's... I just can't see why he would beat Gunther, what that would do for Gunther. You're dubbing him the career killer. The last PLE he was on, he tapped out John Cena. Nobody had done that for over 2 decades. The career killer, and then the first sort of retirement match he has, he loses. I mean, that's some career killer. If you're going to do the gimmick, you've got to commit to it, right? So I think Styles loses, and I do think he's done from WWE this weekend. I think that it makes sense. 10 years, walked in at the Rumble, walked out at the Rumble. I think that's a pretty, that's a perfectly, good book put together. But this is pro wrestling, and you just never know. You never know. And this is, I guess, the beauty of having, a competitor or other places to go and work and make good money, is it does leave options like this where people can go, you know what? Before I hang it up, I do want to decide just to do something a little bit different. I want to just do a little bit different, and I want to give back to the business and try and help this company just so, the pro wrestling ecosystem is as healthy as it can be. Or there's the other thing. He could go back to TNA. This is what other people have speculated on too. Maybe he loses, and maybe he goes to TNA, does a couple of matches there, maybe wins the world title. Then he goes back to WWE and has one more match and retires. So, that could be something too. You can be signed to TNA without being signed to WWE, as we've just seen. Would there be a lot of money in that for him? Probably not, but I don't think he really cares that much about the money. it could be something again that they look at might be an option for him. Perhaps it might be. We've got over 70 people watching, which is great, by the way, guys. If you haven't already, click the like button. Be sure to subscribe to Wrestle News 365 if you are new. Reminder, super chats are on and always welcome. As you can see, they will pop up on the screen and they shall be read out. For example, here.
Yeah!
Kevin super chatted $30. This is a test super chat message.
So if you get your super chats in, they will appear on the screen, they'll make a noise, and they shall be read out. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. And also, as always, when it comes to members of the WN365 roster, if you do join, you appear on screen in a form like that. But also, well, actually, I can play that one as well. You get acknowledged.
Acknowledge me.
Kevin has become a WN365 roster
Very generous
member.
is Kevin.
This is a test YouTube membership.
Yes, and you join the roster appreciation. There's 3 tiers. There's developmental main roster and Hall of Fame. What does the poll say a little bit? It says here, so far, yes, is leading it with AJ Styles possibly signing with AEW after the WWE retirement.
Yeah!
Jamie.
At Jamie X6F super chatted £5. Why do you ignore JCW? Sucking up to Meltzer and Sap? I can't think of any other reason.
I don't ignore JCW, Jamie. I did the story the other day, actually, about them being in talks with John Layfield about possibly coming in as a full-time performer. There just doesn't sometimes be a lot of news surrounding it. If a lot of big news comes, I covered the Vince Russo to JCW thing. Covered the thing about, as I mentioned, with JBL. Covered the thing with wasn't Cardona like the JCW heavyweight champion or something like that? I don't know. I am quite curious to see just what happens from a viewership standpoint on their YouTube shows. I think they are going up. I can't say that I've had the time to watch any of the episodes. I did see. Oh, what is the YouTuber that does them? There's a guy that covers them every week. Is it Marky D? Is that his name? He does like Ring of the Hawk and stuff like that, which is really good. I've watched a bunch of his videos back. For a while I got really into him. I think it's Marky D, his name, and I think he's a Brit as well. He does pretty good stuff, and I think I saw in one of like my recommendeds that maybe he had covered it, but I've only watched a part of that. The only thing I saw was Russo was in the ring with Vito and did like a really, really long promo, and that's kind of all I remember. I know that James Storm, I think, has been in it, maybe. But who knows? Who knows? Look, as I've said before, more places to work, the bigger the ecosystem. Hey, I don't mind it. I don't mind it. Now I want to be a bit careful with this because this is Patreon, and I don't want to like screw over the guys from Fightful. What shall I do for that? Because there's that. To be fair, Fightful have dropped a bunch of stuff today about different updates on people. To be fair, you can't really see it. I think it's okay. So there's a bit here on Pat McAfee talking about how he's seemingly going to be on his way back to WWE soon. McAfee's been off television for quite some time. He's been doing television duties for football. However, he could be heading back soon. According to WrestleVotes Radio on Fightful Select, they've said that McAfee is expected to be back, obviously, once the football commitments have ended. They said that WWE sources believe that they expect McAfee to be back at the company soon. His schedule or capacity isn't quite known as of yet. He keeps, usually, and it's a bit different because it's in Saudi, but usually they bring him in for the Rumble. Obviously he was at the Rumble last year, wasn't he? Because he was back for the Raw Netflix premiere. What do you guys think of McAfee? Because he can certainly rub people the wrong way. That I've noticed. I've noticed that he's gone through a bit of an interesting run in the eyes of WWE fans, because I remember when he first started doing commentary. There was a lot of love for Pat McAfee. He's legitimately a fan, and he's just there enjoying himself, and he's like being us behind the desk, behind the microphone, and He kind of rejuvenated Michael Cole's energy and enthusiasm at the commentary table, and people were like, this is great, you know. And then as time went on, and then he went away and came back, there was a little bit more, well, how committed is he? And on top of that, when it comes to McAfee, sometimes he's a bit cringe, and sometimes he's not even focusing on the match. And I would prefer that they actually just, you know, call the match, just call the moves, don't do any of the stupid shtick at ringside and this, that, and the other. And now it's at a point where if people hear that McAfee could be on his way back to WWE, it does get a bit of a groan. At the same time, this is a guy that's immensely successful. This is a guy that has his own radio show that's been massive. This is a guy that has obviously had success in WWE. He's had success in NFL. He's not hard up for money. He's not doing the WWE gig because he needs the money. Far from it. He's a very wealthy man. But he just loves pro wrestling, and that's why he does it, because he likes doing it. And he also puts the money where his mouth is and gets in the ring. And if you watched Unreal recently, I thought he actually came across pretty well in that WWE Unreal with his match against Gunther, even if Bruce Pritchard was pitching for him to win, which again is complete fucking madness. So for him coming back, I get it. But, I mean, do we really think that that WWE needs it at this point? You know, does the Royal Rumble need Pat McAfee on commentary? Probably not, right? Probably don't need McAfee on commentary for that show. And also, he doesn't really tend to do the Saudi shows anyway. So, maybe it is going to be, you know, Elimination Chamber. Maybe that's the time that he comes back, right? Maybe that's the time that he comes back behind the broadcast booth. Who for? I don't know. This is maybe when you get back into the Corey Graves scenario again, where you start feeling bad for Corey Graves, don't you? Because there's certainly one of the teams is Joe Tess and Wade Barrett, and they make a really good team, whatever show they're on. Because they're not really show specific anymore. They switch around all the time, don't they? But Wade Barrett and Corey Graves, and Joe Tess are a really good team. And then Michael Cole, in the absence of having Pat McAfee there, is with Corey Graves, and they're a really good team. But then when McAfee comes back, he comes straight back in unless they work a three-man booth. But if they do a three-man booth on PLEs, they sometimes like to have Wade Barrett in there now, don't they? So I think as time goes on, I just don't think there's really much need. I think maybe you could do a thing where McAfee only did PLEs, and maybe that makes PLEs feel bigger. I just don't really see there being a need anymore for Pat McAfee to be on weekly TV behind the desk for WWE. Now, I think maybe for PLEs, if that's what you wanted to do, and even if you did want to have just a PLE commentary team that was McAfee and Cole, maybe go with that. And I know, obviously, again, people would maybe resent that, but McAfee's not going to go to every PLE, maybe they would say. I don't know. But yeah, with McAfee come back, it's not too much of a shock, I suppose. But still, he does have his critics, certainly, doesn't he? He does have his critics. Given that the Royal Rumble as well is on the horizon, there have been all of these talks about possible surprise entrance, which, of course, I suppose McAfee could be considered a surprise entrant. In terms of people that are maybe looking a bit more likely, spoilers ahead, but it's not too, spoiler heavy, to be fair. There's been discussions about NXT stars, of course, being in the Rumble. Sol Ruka and Lola Vice, according to Sean Ross Sapp, Fightful Select, have both been discussed for the Rumble. Sol Ruka has been heavily speculated anyway, considering she obviously won her main roster match against Bayley at Saturday night's main event. She was not on NXT this week either. There might be some AAA influence in the Rumble as well. Don't be shocked if you see some AAA superstars. Perhaps we might see a Mr. Iguana, someone like that. Maybe Vikingo could be involved in the Rumble match. Wouldn't be too shocked on that one. I'm not going to go into like odds, because I know that some outlets post like odds and all this kind of stuff, don't they? About who's favourites to win the Rumble, what have you. Because look, sometimes they can be right. That's why I don't look at them. Particularly as you get closer to the show. If you get closer to the show, sometimes you see the odds, they get pretty accurate. I did also want to talk about this because there's been quite a lot of speculation about this on social media over the last few days, and it comes into everyone's favorite subject, which of course is ratings. and specifically AEW Dynamite ratings, which are not polarizing or controversial in the slightest, are they? Yes, of course they are. But the reason this is obviously so much of a story this week is because no one could basically find out the viewership number for Dynamite for a long time from last week's episode. You know, the days came and went. The NXT viewership and ratings number came out, and then usually it would go, right, on Thursday, the Dynamite number comes out. And then on Friday, the TNA number will come out. Maybe it might be Monday, depending on, you know, the way things go, but usually it's 24 hours after. And the Dynamite number didn't come out for whatever reason. The key demographic rating did, but the total viewership number didn't. There was speculation online that it was like 300,000 viewers, and it's not come out because no one's been told to report it because it's under 300,000, and it's super embarrassing for AEW Dynamite, and that wasn't the case. It still wasn't amazing numbers. It was Dave Meltzer, and once again, people go, see, Meltzer reported it. He got it straight from Tony Khan, or should I call him Ron, and his birder, reported that Dynamite on January 21st drew 498,000 on TBS. This number is down from the 526,000 viewers the show drew on January 14th. Wednesday's episode scored a 0.08 rating in the 18 to 49 demographic, in line with last week's rating. HBO Dynamite was simulcast on HBO Max. Viewership number is not available.
Jamie X6F super chatted £10. Absolute bullshit, you ignore JCW even though it's literally your job to report the news in the world of professional wrestling. Middle finger emoji, it's on tonight and you've made 3 Royal Rumble videos and now this. Pathetic. Now
if you are new, Jamie is being half serious and half troll because he also does support and he is a man of his word. It is all tongue in cheek. Who knows? Maybe I will talk about JCW. But you mentioned it is my job, but that makes me my own boss. So I can do whatever I want, Jamie, can I not? Yes, I can do whatever I want, and I will continue doing whatever I want. And I'll continue certainly make Royal Rumble content. It's Royal Rumble this weekend. It was one of the biggest PLEs of the year. Some people's favorite PLE of the year in the Royal Rumble. So I will continue doing it, and I will continue being live. Yes, this is my 3rd bit of content today on this channel. The grind never stops. And I know it's deep down, it's support, Jamie, so I appreciate you. I appreciate you deep down. I know it's support, really. I know it is. So, yes, going back to the number for less than 500,000 for Dynamite, it's still not good. Let's be honest, it's still not good. You have to take it with a little bit of a pinch of salt because the numbers for pro wrestling in general have taken just an absolute beating because of the new Nielsen Big Data Plus panel system. We have seen SmackDown ratings. I think we covered it earlier today. The SmackDown numbers. Actually, I can get that up on the screen for you guys here. Let me just put it up here. The SmackDown numbers, they were under 1 million viewers for the 3rd week in a row. And this is when you think about SmackDown. SmackDown drawing 943,000 on USA Network, which is down once again. Now, draws a 0.22 rating in the 18 to 49, which is actually up. But what is incredible, it's the year on years. Last year's SmackDown, on January 24th, 2025, drew close to 5 million viewers, 1.5, and a 0.44 rating on USA Network. So it's not even when they're on Fox. It wasn't really comparable to when they're on Fox, because Fox is networks, USA Network's cable. They're always going to do bigger numbers on Fox. So it's really on the USA Network. But what you've seen is they drew this number, a 0.22 rating last Friday. A year ago, it was a 0.44. So that's close to their key demo rating being cut in half. Now, that, once again, goes back to the Nielsen Big Data Plus panel. A lot of the networks are not happy about it. Not with WWE or AEW, they're not happy with Nielsen. The head of the CW sports division, we covered this as well, put out something where they basically said, we're trying to sort of write to Nielsen to kind of get clarification on how they're coming up with these numbers because, like I said, they're cutting our key demo ratings in half, which is how a lot of these networks, make money through advertising, or what advertisers are willing to pay during shows that are highly rated in the demographic that they're trying to reach. It's how that advertising revenue works, and that's hurting everyone. So it's not just AEW. My point is, it's not just AEW that are struggling when it comes to numbers falling down. The issue is with AEW, this was happening prior to the Nielsen Big Data Plus panel situation as well. Now, the Nielsen Big Data Plus panel has hurt their numbers, hurt their key demo rating, yes, but the numbers were also kind of on the slide as is. I often think back to this. I often think back to 2022 is such a critical year in the sort of modern pro wrestling landscape. When you think about it, 2022, you come into the year, AEW is on fire. They are absolutely on fire. Coming into the year, they had a great end to 2021 with the signings of Punk and Danielson, doing some of their biggest ever numbers on television, doing some of their biggest ever numbers on pay-per-view. That All Out in 2021 is their biggest buy rate they've ever done. They're regularly, every single week on Dynamite, getting over 1 million viewers, sometimes 1.2, 1.3 million viewers. Their key demo rating sometimes is better than Raw's or better than SmackDown, and they feel like it's the place to be because they're the alternative to the Vince McMahon shit we've been seeing for 20 plus years. I want something fresh. I want something different. But then the year just gets turned on its head in the summer. Obviously, Triple H takes over from Vince McMahon as head of creative after McMahon's retirement. And then at the same period of time, you get Brawl Out. In and around those period of months there, when Triple H is first taken over in the summer, that's like, I think, July. And then Brawl Out happens. Well, at that point, CM Punk's already got injured by diving into the crowd and breaking his foot just days after winning the AEW World title. And there are backstage issues anyway, already beginning with him and Hangman Page and the Elite. And then just a couple of weeks later, we get Brawl Out. And that whole situation leads to huge reputational damage and suspensions and people leaving and people never really being the same with AEW. And I look at that point and WWE suddenly feels fresh. AEW suddenly feels like, actually it's not what we thought it was, and they're making the same mistakes of the past and this, that, and the other. And ever since then, you have seen WWE obviously skyrocket and obviously popularity and ratings and revenue and ticket sales and things of that nature. And AEW sort of not die a slow death, because I don't think they will, and I don't think they have, but they're not as hot as they were anywhere near as they were sort of 4 years ago or 3 or 4 years ago. Now, I do think their quality of products got better over the last year. I think that actually, if you look at AEW in 2023, it was not great. Into 2024, it got better, but I think a lot of the time the damage was kind of done. So when it comes to the ratings, look, let's face it, it's the same with every show. It's not even AEW specific. With AEW, it just might be a bit quicker. But anyone that is anyone that is broadcasting pro wrestling on television over the next years, they will see the trend that everyone has seen, which is the numbers will keep going down. Why will they keep going down? Because less people are watching television live. Less people are watching cable live. I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, like, I barely watch television nowadays, honestly. I don't. I barely watch that much television nowadays. I'm kind of obsessed with just streamers and streaming. I've always got like YouTube on in the background watching someone live, just because, especially people that stream at the same time every day, because it's something different every day. It's new, it's fresh, it feels current, and that's what I'm kind of interested in. And sort of that regular TV, it's only a couple of episodes, like things that I actually do watch, live, which would probably be football, sports, honestly. Maybe if something big's happening in the news, I'll turn into one of the news channels. And then if there's any good sort of scripted TV series, then I'll probably wait till every episode comes out on a streaming platform and watch it then. And that's just how people consume television nowadays. It's changed, hasn't it? So I think for any show, that will just be what it is. The numbers will just continue to go down. Mac Pack Game says, what do we think the chances are of Finn winning the Rumble? Slim. Very, very slim. I don't think. I do wonder what they're going to do with Balor, because he's not booked for the Rumble in terms of the match. He's not got a match. I still think maybe you could get Punk versus Balor gets added in last minute. Maybe even on the show, because I just think Royal Rumble in Saudi, they're paying a shit ton of money. to have that show there. They want the biggest and best names and the biggest draws on that show. And I know obviously Punk's got a history of Saudi, but that's moved over now. He competed at Night of Champions. It would just be a bit odd for him to do basically that apology tour and then not be on the next Saudi show. I'm not sure how good that would make him look. So we still might get maybe Finn versus Punk added. The way that they are announcing things for this Rumble, actually, this is the other point. You've seen Roman Reigns get declared for the Rumble just via a segment on SmackDown, like a video package. Brock Lesnar declared for the Royal Rumble via the Pat McAfee show. It's entirely possible CM Punk versus Finn Balor could be announced tonight, tomorrow before SmackDown, maybe during the Royal Rumble kickoff show in Riyadh, maybe on SmackDown last night. There is still plenty of time. Maybe even on the pre-show on Saturday, it could get added, right? Because they're doing this whole unconventional way of announcing things. Sometimes most things are not getting announced actually on broadcast now. They're getting announced on social media. So, I think there really could be a situation whereby actually Finn Balor versus CM Punk does get added onto the show. It just gets added on a little bit later on, perhaps. Maybe that's what it will be. Let's actually have a look at who's been announced for the Rumble matches, shall we? We'll see who's been announced, and you can let me know who you think is going to win. Let's start off with the men's Rumble. So we've got Cody, Gunther. With Gunther, because he did declare, didn't he? And then it became AJ interrupted him and what have you. But I'm still under the impression that Gunther is in the Rumble, right? And are we maybe going to have a bit of a thing where this is what I would do. I would have maybe Gunther versus AJ open the show. Because think about it. The problem that they will have to navigate here is if AJ Styles loses, which I think he does, and he retires, that's a bit of a downer, isn't it? And in terms of the crowd's going to be bummed out. How could you not be? AJ Styles, the phenomenal one, is retiring. We may never see him wrestle again. Certainly never in a WWE ring. That's sad, isn't it? And the crowd will be pretty pissed off. And they'll probably feel a bit flat. So I think that probably has to open the show. Open the show with that to give the crowd, big up to John for just subscribing, give the crowd as much time as possible to kind of recover from that. And I think they maybe have Gunther beats AJ in the opening match of the show. Then AJ gets a time in the ring to kind of wave to everyone, maybe even do a speech, something like that. But, they get it all out the way. Then Gunther enters the Rumble. Hey, if you really want heat, have him come in at number 30 or something like that. Come in at 30, he enters the Rumble, then everyone stops what they're doing, looks at him, and basically gives him, fuck you. You retired Goldberg, you retired Cena, you retired AJ. We're throwing you out. Or maybe it's not 30. Maybe he's entering at number 20. Let's say he enters at 29. Not 30, 29. Enters at 29. Maybe does try and get a few people out or what have you. Crowds, pissed off, furious with him. That's when Brock Lesnar enters at 30. Brock Lesnar enters at 30. You have Lesnar versus Gunther, face-off, maybe a bit of a scuffle. Maybe Lesnar actually gets Gunther out the match, and then Gunther retaliates, gets back in the ring, throws Lesnar out. That gets them on the path maybe to WrestleMania or to SummerSlam, depending on what happens with Brock's career. Because as John Cena said when he was doing interviews surrounding his retirement, he kind of leaked it, and it was quite widely speculated, to be fair, that Brock could be retiring at SummerSlam this coming year. Of course, SummerSlam, two-night affair once again, but this time it's taking place in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where Brock Lesnar is billed from, place of his alma mater, even though he's born in Webster, South Dakota, and he lives in Saskatchewan. He's always billed as being from Minneapolis, Minnesota. That's where he went to college. So it would make sense for him to retire there, certainly, wouldn't it? So maybe that can be the tease for SummerSlam, or maybe they want to do the match at WrestleMania. I don't know. But I think Gunther will be the one to retire Brock as well, to answer that question just there in the chat. So I think Gunther, he doesn't win it. Maybe he gets eliminated by everyone, or maybe he gets eliminated by Brock. Jey Uso's in it. I mean, this is, and I know that I can be a bit of a Jey Uso hater, but just look at the difference 12 months can make. Jey Uso 12 months ago wins the men's Royal Rumble, at the time, I mean, even at the time, I think I tried to defend it. I tried to defend it by going, look, sells a lot of merch, crowd likes him, he's got an entrance, they're going to try and elevate him and see if he can hang in the main event. But he couldn't. As many people pointed out on it was really evident on the build up to WrestleMania, wasn't it? That this is a guy that, yeah, he sells a lot of merchandise and he's got a great entrance and the crowd like his catchphrase. But then the bell rings or he has to cut a promo. And actually, I'm going to be honest, it actually kind of disappoints me because it really did feel like, didn't it, coming out of that whole bloodline drama, and it still is the case, I suppose, that Jey Uso was the one to really benefit. He was sort of a real standout in that. He got elevated into a singles talent, a bona fide singles talent, was popular, and that was courtesy of how powerful that whole bloodline storyline was. And in certainly the early stages of the bloodline storyline, some of the promos and some of the acting and some of the matches Jey Uso would have with Roman Reigns, taking it seriously, their I Quit match inside Hell in a Cell and all that stuff. He was doing really good work. There's a reason why people were raving about his work, because he was cutting great promos and he was having good matches. But then when he turned babyface and he did start doing the yeeting stuff, it's like I don't know, completely possessed him and overpowered him, that now he can't do a promo that is an actual eloquent long promo without taking pauses every 5 seconds for yeet. He can't do a match that doesn't have a spot in it where they play his music again, because he's blown up after a couple of minutes because his entrance was so long that he's blown up as well. You know what I mean? And I just look at the 12 months since then. He's now tag team champion with Jimmy once again, but it just feels like 12 months of regression during a time of which he was world champion. Didn't come across as all that believable in the build-up to Mania. Tapped Gunther out, which everyone said at the time, don't get that decision, don't think it's the right decision. Wasn't the world champion for very long. Put the belt back on Gunther, and Jey Uso's really been not really that close since, and nor should he be. Because, all right, you can sell merchandise, you can get a pop, but if you, not to say Uso can't work, because he can, but there's just a limit, isn't there? There's a ceiling, there is a limit. And they tried it. It didn't work. So they got to move on. Rey Mysterio has been announced. He is on the plane to Saudi, Rey Mysterio. There was concern he'd got injured on Raw on Monday, but by all accounts, he is on the plane to Saudi. Whether that means he's in the Rumble, time will tell. Dragon Lee, Penta, Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is in the Royal Rumble. And, I mean, some are saying they think he's going to win it. That's kind of the feeling. And the reason why people are going with Roman Reigns is because there is a feeling of, well, what else is he going to do at WrestleMania? It felt like we were getting Roman versus Cody 3. That's what was teased at the end of Survivor Series and War Games. We're not teaming up again. Okay, and then we were told going into Survivor Series, weren't we, that it's going to be... we'll find out at the end of Survivor Series what the main event of WrestleMania is going to be. And it looked like it was going to be Roman and Cody. Then, Drew wins the title in Berlin, and we subsequently get the reports coming out of, actually, plans have changed. Plans have changed, and they've changed to, and this is what is kind of baffling. This is why I semi-believe it, semi-don't believe it, because I just can't believe Triple H would be this foolish. Surely not. But they've gone, Triple H allegedly said, I don't want to do Roman versus Cody because there could be audience fatigue in that one, because we've done it at 2 WrestleManias and we've sort of revisited the storyline a couple of times. They were tag team partners at Bad Blood in 2024, and maybe we should just, there's audience fatigue. So we're going to go instead with Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre. And you want to go, motherfucker, you want to talk about audience fatigue? You've done this match like 3 or 4 times in the last 3 or 4 months. And you're worried about audience fatigue? Now, don't get me wrong. Thrilled that Drew's the WWE champion, finally in front of people. Long may it continue. I'm happy with that. But no disrespect to either Cody versus Drew. I mean, it'd be one thing if they hadn't done that match before, but they have multiple times. And the last time they did it was 3 stages of hell. How do you how do you escalate more than hell with 3 stages of it? Like, for me, the only way you can escalate that is Hell in a Cell. Surely that's the only way you can elevate. And I don't know if that's what they're going to do, but still, that's where you're going to go from that. So I would be on board of maybe, McIntyre versus Fatu versus Cody. I still don't know if that feels WrestleMania main event to me, but you've got to make new stars. Maybe have Fatu win that thing, elevate him to the next level. But because Roman's not involved in that big match at WrestleMania, it has led to speculation of, okay, then what's he going to do? He's still one of your top stars, so you're going to have him win the Rumble? But then, and maybe this is why Cody's not the WWE champion, because if Cody was the champion and Roman won the Rumble, then it would be a case of, Roman, why wouldn't you pick Cody? So Cody can't be the champion right now because Roman's going to win the Rumble. And then that leads people to think, right, okay, they're going to do CM Punk versus Roman Reigns as the main event of WrestleMania, which, to be fair, look, that's a WrestleMania main event, isn't it? CM Punk, Roman Reigns, we haven't seen that one-on-one. We did kind of see it last year because it was triple threat. So it is kind of rehashing it from last year, but there's no Paul Heyman involvement this time. So that's different in that regard. There's the World Heavyweight title on the line, so it's different also in that regard too. So, and look, it's a big-time match, certainly. But then there's this concern of, well, if Roman wins the Rumble and he faces Punk at WrestleMania, then does he win that? Does he probably win? And then if he does win, what does that mean for the World Heavyweight Championship? Because we know Roman's not going to be on TV that much. He'll be on the Raw after WrestleMania, but then he'll disappear again because he's on that part-time schedule. He's not going to be being around for a long time. But that's led to more speculation about next year's WrestleMania. This is how far ahead we're thinking here. The speculation is maybe he wins the title at this year's he wins the Royal Rumble, wins the title at this year's WrestleMania, and that is then the setup for them to finally, pun intended, finally do Roman Reigns versus The Rock at next year's WrestleMania in Saudi, and The Rock's getting this massive payday to have his final match with Roman Reigns with the title on the line, which was the match that they both wanted to do in the first place back in 2024 at WrestleMania 40. The Rock wanted it to be The Rock versus Roman Reigns, and The Rock wanted it to be for the undisputed WWE Championship, and The Rock wanted, allegedly, to win. He wanted to win, and then it would be a situation of he was the one to break Roman's legendary reign, and it was the People's Championship, and then he would give it back to the people. That was the whole thing. He's going to give the belt back to the people. So you have a situation where your main event of next year's WrestleMania could be two part-timers going after a championship, and if one wins, he's just going to vacate it anyway. In Saudi, just to piss people off even more. So that might be the plan. And honestly, it doesn't matter if we like it. Again, pun not intended this time, but it doesn't matter if we like that or not, because if Saudi are willing to pay WWE more money than has ever been paid for pro wrestling, and more money than has ever been paid for a pro wrestler to have a match in The Rock, then WWE will do it. They will not say no to money, regardless of how stupid or how silly or how illogical the creative is. Because if they can get mainstream coverage, if they can go viral, because this is the thing, well, it's about going viral with WWE. If they can go viral, if they can get the closing shot of WrestleMania 42 to be Roman Reigns holding up the World Heavyweight Championship with the pyro going off, and then The Rock shows up at WrestleMania and points at Roman Reigns and points to the championship and then maybe points to the WrestleMania sign, basically saying next year, and they agree to it like they did with Cena and The Rock the night after WrestleMania 27, once in a lifetime, a full year of build-up, they'll do it. They'll do it. They want next year's WrestleMania to be the biggest WrestleMania of all time. And they want The Rock to have his final match there. And this is maybe where he goes back to AJ's retirement. I know The Rock's conscious about what would be the perception of having my retirement match in Saudi. How would that look? How would that come across? AJ Styles is your guinea pig, my friend. AJ Styles, if he retires legitimately, not just from WWE, but if he retires legitimately from pro wrestling in general at the Royal Rumble in Saudi this weekend, see the reaction to that. And if it's, 70-30 in terms of they're just celebrating his career as opposed to being, talking about where he retired, then I think The Rock would probably do it. there's money to be made. I think TKO will probably lean on him a little bit as well, and they'll say, look, as a board member, because remember, The Rock, part of The Rock's deal to get shares in TKO and be on the board of directors was to wrestle that match, which he did. He did that match at WrestleMania 40. That was part of the agreement, was locking him in for that match. So whether or not it would be a case of if he does I think there was maybe 2 matches. So if he does another match, he gets maybe more stock and more bonuses plus the Saudi money. He could get himself the mother of all deals for next year's WrestleMania if he decides to compete. The mother of all deals. So we shall see when it comes to that one. Also announced, we've got Obafemi, who I still love the idea of Obafemi showing up and winning the whole thing. I don't think he will, but I think that would be amazing if he did. And if there was anyone credible enough to pull that idea off of you basically make your official main roster debut in the Royal Rumble and you win the whole thing. If there's anyone that could pull that off, it would be Obafemi, but I just don't think they'll do it. Someone mentioned it in the chat earlier on, and I do like that idea. Obafemi, Brock Lesnar face-off. I like that. Maybe Obafemi eliminates Brock. That would be fun, wouldn't it? And maybe that leads to a match between them at WrestleMania. Maybe, Brock's thing is I'm going to put over Obafemi at WrestleMania. I'm going to put over Gunther at SummerSlam. That's me being on the way out. That's me doing business. I'd like that. I wouldn't be against that. Randy Orton. Randy Orton is a bit of a dark horse, depending on what direction they go in. If there is a situation whereby somehow Cody Rhodes gets the WWE title back before WrestleMania, then maybe it's a Randy Orton Royal Rumble victory and they do Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes, which they still haven't done. They still feel like they're holding, waiting on pulling the trigger for that one. But you never know. You never know with that. And then, of course, as I mentioned, Brock Lesnar also in there. He announced on the Pat McAfee show he's not going to win. I think it's just going to be a case of who he gets eliminated by. And also, Cody Rhodes was first to declare entry. There is always a possibility of Rhodes winning it again, because they did Cody Rhodes back-to-back to put him up into that upper echelon of your Hogans and your Stone Cold Steve Austins, of those people, and Shawn Michaels, who had won it back-to-back. Only select few have done it. And it wouldn't shock me if they want to elevate him to the real rarefied status of being equal with the one person to win 3 Royal Rumbles in their WWE career, which is Stone Cold Steve Austin, right? He won 97, 98, and 2001. Cody, it could be the same for him. Wins 2023, 2024, and wins 2026. Now, Austin's were more spaced out. Cody's is like 3 out of the last 4 years, which is kind of ridiculous if he does indeed win it. I don't think it's impossible. I don't think it's impossible at all that Cody could win it. I would prefer he didn't. But Cody Rhodes is QB1, right? QB1, that's what it's all about. So wouldn't be totally shocked if it was him. Same with Bron Breakker. Wouldn't be totally shocked if it's him. And that's what I think is good. I like there are legitimately, 1, 2, 3, even far 2, 4, 5. There are legitimately quite a few people that could win the whole thing, which is good. It's not obvious, which I like. And it felt like last year they went with Jey Uso instead of Cena just because it wasn't obvious. But this year, legitimately, it's not. So we shall see. If Cody does win it, then maybe that's what that whole Stone Cold Steve Austin thing was regarding recently. There was a report saying that there had been talks of Stone Cold Steve Austin making an appearance on WWE programming soon. Maybe it's because he faces off against the other guy who's only ever won 3 Rumbles, which is Cody, passes the torch. Maybe it's about that. Or maybe it's about Austin coming back to have one more match. Because he did do the interview with Chris Van Vliet where he didn't rule out wrestling again. He said, I could. I maybe wonder if I can find a clip. I could. Whether or not I am going to do it. Whether I am going to do it is another question, but I feel like I could. It's in Vegas, which is where he lives. He lives in Las Vegas, so it's not a far travel for him. So that could be something. And against CM Punk, they are legitimately friends. Maybe they could do it. Maybe they could. See if I can find this thing for one more match. It was in the interview with Chris Van Vliet. Advice for wrestlers just starting. Never wrestled CM Punk or Goldberg. There was one could he have been at WrestleMania 40, which he did say that yes, he could have been. He was asked, but he decided not to. He was too busy, so he couldn't do it. The Stone Cold character, going into hospital, 38 match. There you go. Never say never about wrestling again. That's what I'm looking for. Never say never about wrestling. Let's switch to this screen and hear what he said about it. About the never say never about not wrestling again. Because I do feel like he maybe realized, actually, you know what? I can kind of actually do this, you know. I can maybe have that kind of, you know, one final match kind of thing.
Match here, Chris, but you asked me, could me when I was in my prime, because that would have been a great contest. But I could still do it. And I'm not advocating for nothing. So I'm not selling a match here, Chris. But you asked me, could I? Yes.
Would you?
Probably not. I'll say that, but
Probably.
you say never
Probably
say never.
not.
Sure.
Never
You know,
say
with
never.
the knee replacement I had last year, God dang, I was
Because that was the key thing as well. People forget that. So obviously, he was at last year's WrestleMania, did the whole thing, came out, announced attendance, drove into the wall. But at the time, you know, he was asked about, did you get asked about doing a match at that year's Mania 41 in Vegas? And he said, well, you know, that's all I could basically do. I just had a knee replacement. I'm recovering from that. All I could basically do was go in there and give an attendance thing. I didn't even know if I could walk down to the ring. You know what I mean? I had to be on the 4x4 because, you know, I wanted to be there and to do it, but that was about it. Now, a year later, a year more recovered, looks like he feels like, well, maybe I could.
was limping around so bad, and I didn't even know I was limping. And people would ask me, man, what's wrong? I said, what are you talking about? You're limping. Fuck, I didn't know, because I don't watch myself walk. And then finally, after everybody kept pointing it out to me, I started, it was really, I could feel it, no doubt. That's why I was limping. And then it just started getting really bad because of all the arthritis in there. And finally, last year, I had it replaced. And, you know, I was thinking, why didn't I do this sooner? To get out of so much pain. And you know, I've always wondered what arthritis felt like. Man, I found out firsthand that it's chronically over time, years and years.
It hurts. It does hurt, arthritis. Yeah, I know. My stepdad has it in his fingers. It's horrible. But I remember Bret Hart said something similar about that. Bret Hart, when he talks about when he came back to WWE in 2010, he spoke about how he got a knee replacement. And he was in Hawaii, he said, and he was doing the rehab from it, and it was really painful for the first couple of weeks or what have you. And then he said, then suddenly he just felt like amazing, and suddenly felt like, man, I feel great. Now I think I could go back and do a match. You know, not a proper match because of my condition after the stroke and what have you, and my insurance, but I think I could go back and do something, you know. And maybe Austin's having the same kind of feeling here, where he goes, I tell you what, actually, I feel pretty good. And when I went back even before my knee replacement with Kevin Owens, that was all right. We did something there, and yeah, maybe I could do a match.
Years and years of it, it'll change your personality. It just puts you in a state of mind where you just want some relief. So to get that relief and come out on the other side and still be active. I don't really squat anymore. I do, like Hindu squats, free squats, like guys will do in their hotel room. And I always had good legs. So I'll do that to maintain them. But anyway, still trying to keep in shape. You got to keep in shape because, first of all, it is who I am. I started working out when I was in 5th grade.
Got to stay in shape because you never know. All right? You never know. Never say never. Oh, there was another bit as well about not wrestling Goldberg or CM Punk. There you go. There was this bit. So this could be, you know, the thing that happens in the future.
Mount Rushmore. So there's a lot more. But hey, I don't build.
Big up to Cal. Recently just
Rushmore.
subscribed. You can see right there with the
ever close
pop-up.
to getting you versus CM Punk? Because I feel like it was teased.
I was teased, and at one time I think we were promoting a video game, and I think I just had an ACL, PCL, just put my.
It was so good as well. I wish I could play it. I probably would get copyright if I play it, so I can't. But that CM Punk, Steve Austin. No, I'm not talking about the thing when they were backstage at Raw. They did it for WWE 12, I think it was. That's the Attitude. Funny, it was the Attitude Era game, and you know what they do now, an Attitude Era game. I played it on stream, and I really struggled. It was actually really difficult. I struggled against British Bulldog. It was really hard. Is it 13? WWE 13. Oh yeah, because WWE 12 had The Rock on it. Maybe no, that was WWE 2K14. 12 was Randy Orton, I think, was on it. WWE 13. Yes.
My left knee for shoot, and maybe it was teased, but it just never happened. Just like me and Hogan, there's a bunch of things never happened. There's a bunch of good shit that did happen. So not everything can happen.
We never got you versus Goldberg either.
No, Jesus Christ! Someone I was on Instagram the other day, and it was I think it was 90 seconds of Goldberg doing crazy stuff, and man, you don't realize. Well, I do, but how strong and how explosive and how quick Goldberg was. Motherfucker, He was just a beast. The people he would jackhammer, just the explosive things that he would do. Sometimes just, it was a matter of fact, it was him over in Japan and doing some of those rolling tumble. I don't even know what genre that would be. Some type of
At Jason Hanna 9912 super chatted £5. Just a crazy idea from me. Chris Jericho returns, attacks AJ wins by DQ, then that sets up AJ versus Jericho.
I mean, it's possible. It's possible. I'm not sure. I think big up Jason, always getting involved with the super chats. And as you've seen right there, super chats get read out. Probably not, just because I think because time isn't on their side with it. And we've already done AJ versus Jericho at WrestleMania 32. There is history there, certainly, but I do feel a little bit like maybe they might just, AJ does have legitimately limited time left on his contract, and maybe they're just like, look, we just... You know what? It depends on when Styles is actually retiring. Because if he's retiring, like, I don't know, later on this year, then maybe you could do a bit of a screwy finish, and then he does a bit of a retirement tour, a bit like Cena, faces off against some old rivals, and then says goodbye. But I just don't think that's what they're doing. I think if Jericho returns this Saturday, I just think it's in the Rumble. I don't see it being in the Styles match. I think maybe we could see a thing whereby this is why Gunther's also in the Royal Rumble. So Gunther defeats AJ. Maybe Jericho is in the Rumble. Gunther either he eliminates Gunther or Gunther eliminates him. That sets up their feud, because allegedly Jericho had been pitched a retirement storyline by WWE, which would line up with what they're doing at the moment, wouldn't it? You can see why Jericho maybe was pitched that. If he had indeed had talks with WWE, you can see why he would have been pitched a retirement storyline, because they're mapping out all of these retirement storylines. At the time that he was pitched it, they were probably still heading towards Cena versus Gunther, knowing that they were probably going to do AJ versus Gunther and going, all right, the next one can be Jericho versus Gunther. We can do that, and we'll do that later on in the year, or we'll do that next year at WrestleMania, but we can build towards that maybe. So I think it might be a case of if Jericho does indeed come back, and he is in the Rumble, then I think it might be a thing of maybe he gets involved with Gunther there, and maybe that sets up, what's to come moving forward. But as far as, Jericho and what's going on with that, it's still more of the same. Chris Jericho, as of now, can see him right there. This is on the AEW roster page on their website. As of right now, Chris Jericho still on that roster page, still a active member of the All Elite Wrestling roster. Now, if you're saying, well, they don't update this, yes, they do. They update it very, very frequently, so much so that you can see people that were with the company aren't added to there at the moment, i.e. Powerhouse Hobbs. Powerhouse Hobbs, he is not on there. You can see as you scroll down, Hobbs isn't on there because he's on his way to WWE, and he probably might even be in the Royal Rumble this weekend. He might have a bit of a Jade Cargill moment where they don't really acknowledge AEW, but they say that he's one of the most sought-after free agents in pro wrestling. It's Royce, what's his face? Is it Keys? He's one of the most sought-after names in pro wrestling, and he has an opportunity there. So the longer that Jericho's on this roster page implies he's still with AEW, which would suggest that he's not going to be at the Rumble. But I did have this kind of brainwave a little bit earlier on when I was doing the returns video for the Rumble, that if Jericho is legitimately retiring this year, right? And we know the relationship that Jericho has with Tony Khan, where Tony Khan said, my favorite wrestler is Chris Jericho. It was always Chris Jericho, and I was at the ECW arena. I was at an ECW event, and I saw Chris Jericho wrestle in the match, and Jericho was my favorite, this, that, and the other. If Chris Jericho went to Tony Khan and said, look, Tony, I'm thinking of calling it a day. I think I'm going to retire, and my contract's coming up, and I just wanted to be honest. I'm going to go back to WWE and I'm going to retire there. I'm going to go back and I'm going to have a couple of matches. I'm going to be in the Rumble. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm done, basically. I'm done. And I just wanted to tell you and be upfront. And also out of respect for me, I just ask you don't remove me from the website, just to kind of sell it a little bit. Now, whether or not Tony would go for that, whether Jericho would ask that, I don't know. That is purely a speculation on my point. I think the tensions are so high between WWE and AEW that they would not be willing to do that. But at the same time, this is the same Chris Jericho that has appeared on WWE television while being under contract to AEW. He appeared on Raw in 2022 via video package. He appeared on the Broken Skull Sessions on the network, or on Peacock, ahead of WrestleMania 37. But a lot's happened since then between WWE and AEW. So, I think the most obvious answer, the simplest answer is the most obvious answer, whatever that phrase is, that maybe he is still with AEW. Because people forget, he signed with AEW in 2019 in January. So it might just be that he's still under contract. I mean, I guess on Saturday, if he's still on that AEW roster page, maybe that suggests something. I don't know. If he is legitimately retiring, maybe Tony Khan decided to throw him a bone and said, you know what? For you, Chris, for everything that you've done, look, Chris Jericho, whether you like him or you don't like him, what he has done for AEW is immeasurable. He was considered to be a WWE guy after signing with them in 99. He said, I'm never going to wrestle anywhere else. Then that changed to, I'm never going to wrestle to anywhere else in North America because he was doing stuff with New Japan. Then that changed to, I guess we'll see. AEW offered them the most money he'd ever been given in his career, and he felt like he had reached his zenith in WWE. He had done it most of everything in the company, and if there was ever an angle he thought that was main event WrestleMania, he thought it'd be the Kevin Owens best friends angle. Didn't happen because Goldberg came back, and they did Goldberg versus Lesnar instead, and the Jericho Owens match went on second, and Vince McMahon hated it, and wasn't the ending that they thought it was going to be, and he was pissed off because of that. So he went to AEW because of it, and did really well. And signing Jericho added legitimacy to the company. It really helped with their TV deal, which they got with TNT. On top of that, of course, he was their first ever world champion, and those first few episodes of Dynamite were all about Chris Jericho and the Inner Circle and the rivalry with Cody Rhodes, the AEW World Championship and what have you. And Jericho legitimately put that company on his back and established it from a television week-to-week perspective. So what he did for AEW and what he's done for Tony Khan is immeasurable. So if he said, look, I'm going to retire, I would like to retire in WWE, and I would, if you can, just not remove me from the website so everyone doesn't know what I'm doing, that would be much appreciated out of respect. I'm asking you to do that. Maybe Tony Khan would. Or maybe it is just as obvious as he re-signed with AEW and he's going to come back, I don't know, at some point. I don't know when. AEW don't really have any big events on the horizon. They've got Revolution, but that's in March. So that's still like 6 odd weeks away. They've got Grand Slam Australia, but you're not going to do a Jericho return that's pre-taped because that's airing later on in the day after it's been taped in Australia. So I don't know. I think it's for something that felt so nailed on and so like he's definitely going back to WWE, for something that felt like that for certainly from sort of October onwards, October, November, December, definitely in December it felt like Jericho's going back to WWE. That is happening. It's like we're just waiting for his contract to expire. I don't think anyone expected that December 31st date to pass and then it'd be like, actually, he still might be with AEW. What's going on there? And I mentioned previously there was some concern about how easy or difficult it would be to sneak people in as surprise entrants. Turns out actually it might be easier than it usually is because they're getting chartered flights, private airstrips, and look, literally the government and the royal family of Saudi Arabia paid for these shows. You know, the Saudi PIF are putting up the money, and Turki Al-Sheikh is heavily involved in the Saudi General Entertainment Authority and what have you. It's not that many steps removed from MBS. So, yeah, if they want privacy as they fly into Saudi, they can get it. If they want no one to know that Chris Jericho has arrived in Saudi, they can do that. So actually, it might not be that difficult at all for him to get into Saudi. In the same way that I spoke about AJ Styles earlier on, talking about how it's kind of poetic and it runs parallel, it makes sense. AJ Styles arrives at the Rumble, debuts at the Rumble in 2016, and then leaves WWE at the Rumble in 2026. A perfect decade in WWE, and then disappears. Might be the same for Chris Jericho. Last match he had in WWE was 2018 in a Royal Rumble at the greatest Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia. 8 years later, he comes back at the Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia. Makes a bit of sense, that, doesn't it? It kind of matches up with each other, and then maybe he goes on to WrestleMania to maybe face Gunther. Maybe that's what the retirement storyline is. He's genuinely going to be done in 4 months' time. He's going to come back to the Rumble, face Gunther at WrestleMania, retire, then he's done. That's it. He'll call it a day. Maybe it's going to be literally that short. It's one final run, and then it's over for him. I don't know. Because Jericho, he's never one, I feel like, to be told that he should retire in that. And the crowd have been telling him that for the last couple of years. And he's always been like, I feel I can go on for much more years. I feel great. Maybe it has kind of dawned on him that actually people didn't really want me there in AEW towards the end. And my in-ring work wasn't what it was. And I am becoming a bit of a parody of myself. And sometimes it's the hardest thing for a pro wrestler to know when it's their time, particularly when they don't have injuries, particularly when they are healthy, to keep doing it. Sometimes it is the best thing for some wrestlers for it to be the decision to be taken out of their hands because they can't make it themselves. And Jericho's a very strong-egoed, big-egoed, strong-willed guy. And if there's anyone to be, that he'll say no to, it's everyone. You don't tell Chris Jericho what to do, damn it. I'll decide when I want to retire, but maybe it is the right time. Maybe it is the right time for him to retire. And it slowly dawned on him in the time that he was away from AEW that actually, I need to kind of wrap it up. And if I am going to wrap it up, I would prefer to wrap it up in WWE, actually. So that's what I'm going to do. So perhaps maybe that is the plan for Jericho. The fortunate thing is we're not going to have to wait long. Now I am going to do a thing, a WN365 live on Sunday. So Sunday, I'll be live for that. I'll be live for that. If you heard some noise, that's because I wanted to get up this, because I just can't even believe this exists. I have to play it with the sound off, right? But it's still just like amazing to me that it actually does exist. This is fan footage of the Chris Jericho return in 2007, which is insane. Now, like I said, I will have to turn the sound off for you guys, but I'll listen to it with the sound on. Just amazing that this was like live. And this was so well done as well. I remember the codes, and it was one of like the first like viral storylines to happen as well. And I remember so many people were like looking at the codes every week going, oh, actually this means this and this means this. Turns out the code was a load of shit. There was never any Easter eggs or hints in it. They just moved the letters around at the end. So I mean, that was like the code, and go, oh, what does that mean? What do these codes mean? No, they literally just changed them. Changed them. And went, oh, Y2J. Big pop. And you get the countdown music. I mean, the quality of this footage for what must be a camera phone in 2007 is ridiculous. My camera phone in 2007 was not doing this level of quality. And then you break the walls down. And then he came back with short hair. And I got spoiled because he was on the cover of the WWE magazine as well. Be great if that guy was holding up a massive sign in the way. Move the sign. There you go, zoom in. Well done. That blur, that is Chris Jericho. Yes. Yeah, so maybe, you never know. Maybe Jericho. Maybe we're making his return this weekend. Time will tell indeed. We're 1 like away from 40 likes, so if you haven't already, click that like button. Be sure to subscribe to Wrestle News 365 if indeed you are new. We're at 26,207 subscribers. So next goal is 30k in 2026. So there's still a way to go, but fingers crossed. We'll get there. So big up to everyone for tuning in. Really appreciate everyone tuning in to this episode of WN365 Live. As I mentioned, I think this is going to be the new schedule moving forward. It makes more sense to me to do it this way. So it'll be Tuesdays, Thursdays, and a weekend day. Depends on what's happening in the world of wrestling and in the world of Manchester United. So I thought Tuesday, Thursday makes sense because that means if there are Raws, SmackDowns, or AEW shows, AEW Dynamite shows that are at a preferable starting time, that means I can do watch-alongs and we don't miss out on an episode of WN365 Live. Or if I stay up late and do an episode, it means we don't miss out on episodes that the next day. So it also means, for instance, this weekend, we've done the episode on Tuesday, and now today on Thursday, and then we'll do another episode Sunday, because on Saturday it's the Royal Rumble. If, for instance, like Man United played on a Saturday, I might do it on a Sunday, but Man United play on the Sunday this week. I'm going to do it later on in the evening, around 8 o'clock. It'll be same time. So Tuesdays, Thursdays, and the weekend day, 8 p.m. I'll be live tomorrow evening for a SmackDown watch-along because it's in Riyadh. I think it's a 7 p.m. start, so I'll be live about 15 minutes before. Do a watch-along and a post-show. Then, of course, Saturday, it's Royal Rumble Day, so we'll be live with a watch-along and a post-show for that. And then Sunday, like I said, I'll be live for WN365 Live. And you don't have to worry because the pre-records aren't going anywhere either. We'll have the news videos, the countdown videos, and everything else in between getting uploaded as well. So really appreciate that. Really appreciate everyone that's got involved this evening. Big up to all of the super chatters and the members, the member appreciation. As always, the members of the WN365 roster are on every single ticker that you see on every single scene. And big up to the guys who put the super chats in, namely Jamie, who's put a couple in, and also Jason, who always gets involved in all of the watch-alongs, live streams, or anything we do here on the channel. It really is much appreciated, and it does legitimately make a massive difference. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Like I said, I will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow evening, I'll be live here on the channel. We'll have videos coming up throughout the day anyway, but I'll be live tomorrow, so I'll speak for you then. On Friday. Easy for me to say. It's late. I've got to go to bed. Anyway, have a good evening, folks, and I'll speak to you again soon. Peace!